Hello and welcome back to Patching the Prairie. We've been bone dry for the most part, but we got a little shot of rain overnight. So we're glad about that, even though the growing season's over, because we've had 3 days now with the hard frost. Even though it's still not that cold for the northern plains, the growing season's over. In today's video, I wanted to talk about how we got started as a first generation farm and give some ideas and inspiration to other folks that are maybe trying to get started as well. And we were just leasing a small portion of that, and the landowner would irrigate the trees once a year during the summer just so that they wouldn't totally die. And then he also would mow the rest of the 20 acres just to control the weeds. And I remember watching him out there for days at a time on his small tractor and mower, and thought, he's mowing a lot of sheep feed down that I could be using, and how do I have access to the rest of this property without breaking the bank? What I had run into was a cash flow problem just starting out and not being able to sell any lambs, and I knew that if I tried to access the rest of it, it was going to take all the money that I had, and that wasn't going to work. And so we took the winter off and grazed somewhere else. And then when we came back there, I proposed an agreement to the landowner that I would pay for that annual irrigation of the orchard that he always did. And if I had access to the rest of the orchard, the sheep could do the mowing for him. And so I put together a proposal that estimated that it cost him at least $50 an acre to mow back there. And so the cost savings of the irrigation, for him not to irrigate and for him not to mow, was enough for him to go with my proposal, as well as I had to take on some of the maintenance of the irrigation pump. And so I was able to go from leasing just 2 acres of that property to all 20 for considerably less money than what we had done before, and it was a win-win for both of us. And so I would encourage you to look for similar opportunities in your area. Another unconventional thing that we did during a drought, when we had limited irrigation water, we had the opportunity to go to a different walnut orchard that was actually in production, and those growers had actually planted a cover crop mix in between the trees, and instead of mowing it, they were looking for some sheep to come in and control the forage for them prior to harvest. And so we went in there and we grazed a good portion of that orchard. We did have a hard stop date because they needed all the animals gone 90 days before harvest, and so we did have to drive a little bit out of our way, and it was a little bit inconvenient, but we were able to trade just the sheep being there for some free feed. And so again, there's opportunities out there if you can find them. Another piece of advice that I would give to people is to avoid large equipment or having a lot of equipment if you can. And so one way that we did this when we moved to South Dakota, we had to have a way to move large round bales around. And rather than purchase a tractor or purchase an expensive bale unroller, I came up with a way to use our four-wheeler and some tow straps and a breaker bar to move round bales around the farm. And so we already had all those pieces of equipment at the farm, and I didn't have to spend any extra. And so it was a cheap way to get hay moved where we needed it to. And so again, there's always solutions if you can be creative and try to think outside of the box. Another bit of advice that I would have is, if you're small, is to try to direct market your products if you can. That way you're capturing all of the consumer dollar that's available, as opposed to just a portion of it. And it's also really hard to make small scale agriculture work at sale barn prices or commodity prices. And so if you can find a market and set a price that's profitable for you, I would encourage you to do that. The marketing is more work, but there is some financial payoff if you can find those markets. Another bit of advice is to start small and to maybe focus on 1 or 2 things. In California, we were just focused on sheep, and then we had some poultry for personal use. But we really were able to learn a lot about managing sheep, since that was a new species that I had not previously had any experience with. And then when we ended up moving to South Dakota and purchasing our own farm, we went all in on a whole bunch of different things. And we had meat birds, we had egg layers, we had a garden. We also rented out our pasture for other people's cattle to graze while just starting a new sheep herd. And so we got burned out, honestly. And while it was kind of fun for the first year. The second year it really did start to take a toll on us, and so as we went into our third year here, we actually intentionally cut back on a couple of things just to simplify our lives. And thank you for watching, and let me know if you learned anything in the comments.